The story of Lee Kuan Yew and his involvement with the CIA is one that mixes mystery, political moves, and the rise of a strong leader who outsmarts one of the world's most powerful spy agencies. It is a tale of standing up, national independence, and smart political skills that would shape Singapore's position on the world stage. There are 4 key lessons from this story that can guide us in our daily lives at the end of the video. Chapter 1. The Suspicion. The early 1960s were turbulent years for Southeast Asia. Colonial powers were retreating, and newly independent nations were pushing for political identity and survival. In the fog of this chaos was Singapore, a tiny city-state with no natural resources, situated at a strategic maritime crossroads. The island's leadership was under the control of a new, energetic leader, Lee Kuan Yew. Lee had ambitions for Singapore, a grand vision of transforming this small, fragmented colony into a prosperous and modern nation. But what lay ahead for him was not only internal struggles, but also the tricky game of geopolitics. The United States, embroiled in the Cold War and deeply suspicious of communist influences in Asia, had turned its eyes towards Singapore. In 1965, Lee Kuan Yew, now Prime Minister, faced a decision that would define his relationship with the superpowers. He sought to ensure Singapore's independence and economic survival by aligning with the West, but he was no puppet. His shrewdness, determination, and desire to protect Singapore's autonomy would set him on a collision course with the CIA. Chapter 2. The Rising Tensions. The United States saw the rise of communism in Southeast Asia as an existential threat. With Vietnam inching towards full-scale war, Washington's desire to prevent communism from taking root in other parts of Asia had intensified. Lee Kuan Yew, though not a communist, was seen as an unpredictable leader by the West. His People's Action Party had leftist elements, and there was growing concern that he could potentially lean towards socialist or communist ideals. The United States was afraid that the domino effect theory might happen with the spread of communism, so they went all out to stop it in Vietnam and other Asian countries. For anyone unfamiliar with the domino effect theory, here's a brief explanation. It describes how one event can trigger a series of similar events, like a chain reaction. Imagine a line of dominoes. When the first one falls, it causes the others to topple one by one. This idea is often used to explain how one action can lead to a bigger impact over time. In politics, the theory was used during the Cold War to explain how the spread of communism might happen. The United States believed that if one country in a region became communist, neighboring countries would follow, just like a line of falling dominoes. This idea led the US to intervene in places like Vietnam to stop the first domino from falling. By 1960, CIA operatives were embedded throughout the region. They worked secretly, attempting to gather intelligence on Lee's intentions, who his allies were, and whether Singapore could be turned into a defensive line against communist influence. However, Lee was always a step ahead. He was well aware of the spies in his country. The early stages of Singapore's administration saw Lee play a dangerous game. In public, he courted Western support, securing economic deals and defense agreements. But behind closed doors, he quietly built an independent intelligence organization, the Internal Security Department, ISD, modeled on the British system, designed to counter any foreign interference. One day, an intercepted communication confirmed Lee's suspicions. There was a CIA network operating in Singapore, funneling money to opposition parties to destabilize his government. The report was explosive. The superpower was interfering in Singapore's fragile democracy. Chapter 3. Lee Strikes Back. What happened next was not what the CIA had expected. Most leaders, fearing the wrath of the United States, would have buried such evidence. Lee, however, decided to take an audacious step. He would confront the US directly. Lee's invitation to the US Embassy in Singapore was laced with diplomacy, but sharpened with the threat of exposure. The American ambassador sat across from Lee when he presented the evidence. The room was thick with tension. In a cold, measured voice, Lee Kuan Yew made it clear that he was not to be trifled with. Singapore might be small, but its sovereignty was not for sale. He demanded the immediate termination of all CIA activities on Singaporean soil. And in a final, calculated blow, Lee hinted that if the US didn't comply, he would go public with the scandal, exposing the CIA's interference to the world. The threat was enough to send Washington into a scramble. In the height of the Cold War, the US couldn't afford a scandal that would undermine its credibility among emerging nations. The American government knew that Lee was not bluffing. Hear this from Lee Kuan Yew himself.
I want to be quite frank with you here. If the British withdraw, I'm prepared to go on with the Australians and the New Zealanders, but I'm not prepared to go on with the Americans.
Why not, Mr. Prime Minister? Why do you think America...
Well, can I put it this way? I think there are highly intelligent, well-meaning often, people, and some of their leaders, like Kennedy, the late president, had signs of growing greatness, depth. But, you know, by and large, the administration lacks depth and judgment or wisdom, which comes out of an accumulation of knowledge of human beings and human situations over a long period of time. That's lacking. And it's not their fault. What have they got? 300-400 years of history, and they've become a nation just recently. You know, I'll tell you this. I've had only three experiences with the Americans. And they did not intend any harm in each one of them. But the tragedy was they did real harm. First, this is old stuff now. We caught an American CIA agent trying to subvert our intelligence special branch officer. Bribe him so that the special branch officer will feed the CIA, because the CIA wants to know what's happening. I mean, subverting a Singapore officer. The man might have succeeded, but I'm proud to say that the officer offered large sum of money and continuing sums of money. This was in 1960. Refused and reported the matter to his chief, who reported it to me. Man was caught, locked up. And it was on razor's edge whether we charged him in open court or not. No, let me explain this. When I told the American government, all right, we keep quiet, you take this man away, $100 million to the Singapore government for economic development. You know? No, listen to me. I didn't tell, you know, I never spoke to the Americans direct because, you know, they lack the finesse, and, you know, they may say, yes, hey, give it to you. Why not? Why should the Singapore government just give to you, to me, which would have ruined me? But through an intermediary, they offered me and my party $10 million. I mean, the insult, you know. I told them, keep it. No, this is important. Do not forget this. And this is why I have not the slightest doubt that my two colleagues, Dr. To and Mr. Rajaratnam, go on this tour of Afro-Asia, which they'll do as soon as the local affairs are settled. I have not the slightest doubt that Afro-Asia will be with us. You see, unlike if Cuba with an American base, with American sovereignty, is independent and not a neo-colonialist stooge, then me, the people of Singapore, owners of the British bases. I mean, I could give you a notice, 24 hours notice, you have to quit. Or you're committing an act of aggression with very serious consequences.
Oh, very true.
Oh, yeah, surely.
Wait until you see what we can learn from this exchanges near the end of the video. Chapter 4, The Public Reckoning. In a dramatic press conference that shook the diplomatic world, Lee Kuan Yew announced that Singapore had uncovered a foreign plot to interfere in its internal politics. Without naming the US directly, he made it clear that a major global power was attempting to destabilize his government. He described the lengths to which his administration would go to protect Singapore's independence, and laid out a narrative of Singapore as a sovereign state standing against foreign manipulation. The announcement was a masterpiece. By exposing the operation, Lee demonstrated his control over the situation. It positioned him as the protector of Singapore's fragile democracy, someone who would not bow to external pressure, not even from a superpower like the United States. Chapter 5, The CIA's Humiliation. Behind the scenes, the CIA was furious and humiliated. They had underestimated Lee Kuan Yew's resolve and political savvy. They had miscalculated, and now Lee had not only thwarted their plans, but had also dealt a significant blow to their credibility in Southeast Asia. In a rare and shocking move, the U.S. State Department agreed to Lee's demands. The CIA operatives involved were recalled, and the U.S. issued a diplomatic apology, though unofficial, to Singapore. The covert interference had backfired. Instead of destabilizing Lee's government, it had fortified it. The scandal turned Lee into a hero for his people, a leader who had stood up to the world's most powerful nation and emerged victorious. From that moment forward, Lee would maintain a careful but firm relationship with the US and other powers, which helped to harden his image as an unyielding defender of Singapore's independence. Chapter 6. The Lion Roars. In the years following the CIA debacle, Lee Kuan Yew transformed Singapore into one of the most prosperous and stable nations in the world. His iron-fisted leadership style, though often criticized, was effective. Singapore became known as the Lion City, a powerful economic force despite its size. But the shadow of that confrontation with the CIA never fully disappeared. It became part of the legend of Lee Kuan Yew, a leader who, against all odds, defied the odds and the might of the world's most powerful intelligence agency. The lesson Lee imparted was clear. No matter how small a nation might be, it could stand tall if led with determination, intelligence, and fearlessness. Here are the 4 lessons that we can draw from this story. Lesson number 1. How one theory destroyed millions of lives. The United States leader during this era believed in the domino theory so blindly, which failed to pan out in practice. Vietnam failed to the communists, but many other neighboring countries remained with their political ground. This theory is not only proven false, but killed so many civilians, and both sides were greatly injured because of this theory. The effect is still ongoing today with the Agent Orange chemical that was unleashed 60 years ago. The lesson here is we can't cold-heartedly follow a theory that is not proven to be true. This theory is estimated to have killed roughly 1.5 to 2 million Vietnamese and roughly 58,000 soldiers on the United States side. Lesson number 2. Stand firm in your beliefs. Lee Kuan Yew's unwavering commitment to protecting Singapore's sovereignty, despite facing a powerful force like the CIA, teaches us the importance of standing up for what we believe in. Whether in personal or professional life, staying true to your principles can earn respect and lead to success. Lesson number 3. Strategic thinking. Lee's ability to outmaneuver the CIA through careful planning and calculated decisions shows how important it is to think strategically, especially in difficult situations. This lesson applies to managing challenges in life by staying one step ahead and using intelligence to overcome obstacles. Lesson number 4. Small actions can make a big impact. Despite Singapore's size, Lee's leadership proved that even small nations or individuals can make a significant difference. This encourages us to believe that no matter how small or insignificant we may feel, with determination and clear vision, we can create a lasting impact. In the end, Lee Kuan Yew's story with the CIA was not just a tale of espionage and political drama. It was a lesson in leadership, sovereignty, and the power of a determined leader who refused to be a pawn in a global game. For the people of Singapore, it became another reason to believe in the vision of a man who turned a vulnerable island into a symbol of resilience and strength. And as Lee once famously said, "If you deprive yourself of the talent of leadership, you injure your country." He would prove time and again that he was the leader Singapore needed, the lion who outwitted the eagle, but the lion knew when to stay cool as well. What advice would you give to someone facing pressure to conform to popular opinion? And what qualities do you think are essential for a leader to have? We would love to hear from you. Please put your comments and your thoughts below.
Thank you for making it this far. If you like this video, you might want to share it with a like-minded friend. Thank you, and as always, stay blessed.